You didn't find this by accident. You didn't click this video out of boredom. Something in you was called here, not by words, but by resonance. This isn't content, it's a frequency. A frequency your system recognizes, even if your mind doesn't yet understand why. Because deep within you, beneath the noise of your thoughts and the weight of your routines, there is a memory. A quiet, pulsing memory of who you've always been. And something in this moment is waking it up. You're not here to be taught, you're here to remember, not with logic, but with sensation. So as you listen, don't try to analyze, just feel. Let the sound move through you. Let the silence between the words speak louder than anything I could say. And trust, if you've arrived here, you were always meant to. This isn't the beginning of a journey. It's the recognition of one you've been on for lifetimes. Welcome back. You've probably heard it more times than you can count. You have to manifest what you want. It's become a modern mantra. People say it with conviction, as if the words themselves could bend the universe. And maybe you've tried lighting candles, scripting in journals, meditating with crystals, visualizing your perfect future like a movie you desperately want to direct. But deep down, hasn't it always felt like something is missing? Not in the ritual itself, but in the energy behind it. That quiet doubt whispering, why does it still feel so hard? Why, if manifestation is real, do we keep chasing, hoping, grasping? The ancient teachings of Thoth never taught us to chase. They spoke in frequencies, in codes, in the kind of wisdom you don't learn, you remember. What if the problem isn't your method, but your state of being? What if the universe doesn't respond to effort, but to coherence? Because here's the thing, reality doesn't shift because you ask for it to. It shifts because you become someone who no longer needs to ask. In the stillness between your thoughts, something deeper knows this already. That vibration is not some magical buzzword. It's the pulse of your truth. And it's always been speaking quietly beneath all your trying. Imagine this. You're no longer asking life to bring you peace. You are peace. And because you are it, everything around you begins to match it. The universe doesn't give you what you want. It mirrors who you are. So you can say the words, write the affirmations, repeat your mantras. But if underneath all that, there's a frequency of fear, scarcity, unworthiness. That's what speaks louder. That's what resonates. It's not your fault. We were taught to do, to earn, to push. But Thoth's wisdom whispers something radically different. You don't need to force. You need to remember. Remember what? That the version of you who already has peace, love, abundance, she's not in the future. She's here, waiting in the silence. Waiting in the stillness you keep running from. When you slow down enough to feel her. When you stop trying to get there and instead be here. You become magnetic. Not because you're trying to attract, but because you've aligned. Like a radio dial finally tuned in. The music was always playing, you just weren't on the right frequency. And here's the thing no one tells you. The shift doesn't feel like fireworks. It feels like relief. The moment you stop asking, how do I get this? And start living as if you already are it. That's when the outer world begins to soften, reorganize, recalibrate itself around your inner harmony. You don't chase, you radiate. You don't perform, you remember. And what you remember isn't something new. It's something ancient. Something your soul knew long before you ever learned the word manifest. So let this be a homecoming, not a technique, not a hack, not a trick, just a quiet returning. Back to the frequency that was always yours. Back to the version of you that was never broken, only buried under noise. You don't need to do more, you need to feel more. Feel the resonance of what already exists within you. Let it rise. Let it ripple. Let it speak not in words, but in being. Because in the end, you don't create your reality by effort. You create it by alignment. And once you align, life doesn't have to be convinced. It simply reflects you. No one tells you that awakening can feel like grief. There's this illusion that spiritual growth should be calm, gentle, radiant, like stepping into a beam of light. But what if your awakening begins not with clarity, but with chaos? What if your first real sign of expansion is that everything around you starts to fall apart? You try to hold it together. The job, the relationship, the version of yourself you spent years carefully constructing. But no matter how hard you try, the pieces keep slipping. And that's when fear creeps in. You wonder, am I doing something wrong? Why does everything feel so heavy, so uncertain, when I'm supposed to be becoming more aligned? But here's what the ancient voices knew and what modern life has forgotten. Destruction is not always a sign of failure. Sometimes it's the only way truth can breathe. When Thoth spoke of inner transformation, he never promised comfort. He spoke of death, not of your body, but of your former frequency. Because light doesn't always come gently. Sometimes it breaks the ceiling you didn't even know was caging you. And the collapse you fear, that's not punishment. That's release. Your soul cannot keep vibrating higher while living in the architecture of who you used to be. And so, the structures crumble not to hurt you, but to free you. There comes a moment in every awakening when you realize, it's not that your life is falling apart. It's that the life you built from old patterns is no longer sustainable. What's breaking is the shell, and what's emerging is real. But in that space between the collapse and the becoming, there is silence. There is uncertainty. And if you're not careful, you'll interpret that silence as absence. But it's not absence, it's integration. Like a forest burned to ash, seemingly lifeless, yet beneath the soil, the roots remember. And from that memory, something entirely new can begin. The chaos you're feeling, it's not a sign to stop. It's a sign you're finally aligned with something more honest. And yes, the in-between is hard. Your mind will beg for logic. Your heart will ache for familiarity. But your frequency, it knows. It knows this disorientation is not danger. It's direction, so breathe. Let yourself not know. Let yourself unbecome. Because this is not the end. This is the turning. This is the space where the old dissolves and the new begins not with answers, but with deeper questions. You are not lost. You are being reshaped. And the more you soften into that truth, the more you'll begin to see the collapse not as chaos, but as clarity. You're not being broken, you're being made new. There's a moment in the awakening journey when something fundamental shifts. You stop asking, you stop pleading, you stop chasing signs and outcomes and validations. Instead, you realize, you're not here to convince life to give you what you want. You're here to reflect what's already true within you. You are not the beggar of reality. You are its mirror. And a mirror doesn't choose what it reflects. It simply shows what is. This might sound simple, even passive, but it's the opposite. It's the most empowered shift you'll ever make. Because when you understand that life is not doing things to you, but through you reclaim every ounce of your energy, you begin to see that the reality you experience isn't judging you. It isn't rewarding or punishing. It's responding to your frequency, to the subtle, often unconscious resonance you carry in every moment. And once you see this, you stop trying to manipulate the outside world. You stop fixing, performing, explaining. You begin tuning. Not to make something happen, but because the very act of tuning is the transformation. There's no more room for victimhood here. No space for the story of, why won't life give me what I want? Because the real question becomes, what am I currently reflecting? And this doesn't mean blame. It doesn't mean shame. It means sovereignty. It means standing in front of the mirror not to criticize what you see, but to finally take responsibility for what's being shown. Every reaction you provoke, every opportunity you attract or repel, every moment of expansion or contraction, it's all a reflection, not of your worth, but of your vibration. And vibration can shift, not by pretending, not by trying harder, but by softening into awareness. You become the mirror that reflects peace by feeling peace. You reflect clarity by anchoring clarity within. You reflect abundance by no longer vibrating from lack. This is not control. This is coherence. You don't need to force the mirror to change its image. You only need to change what stands before it. So, the next time life feels like it's not listening, pause. Don't demand. Don't explain. Just notice. Notice what you're resonating. Notice the subtle texture of your energy. And instead of asking the world to shift, become the shift. Because once your inner frequency changes, the mirror has no choice. It follows. Not because you fought it, but because you finally matched it. And in that alignment, there is no begging, no struggle, just reflection. Powerful, honest, immediate. You are not a seeker of miracles. You are the space in which they appear. Some truths were never meant to be spoken. They live beneath the surface of language, soft, ancient, encoded in silence. Thoth didn't write for the mind. He encoded frequencies. He left behind vibrational imprints that cannot be taught, only recognized. This is not about belief. It's about remembering. There is a kind of knowing that doesn't come from study. It rises up from somewhere deep inside, as if something long forgotten is being stirred, gently, by soundless chords of light. You felt it before, in a quiet moment, in a dream you couldn't explain, in the stillness after everything else stopped making sense. That is the realm where Thoth operates. He doesn't instruct, he awakens, not with commands, but with resonance. Not with logic, but with symbols that unlock themselves only in the presence of readiness. You don't understand this wisdom by decoding it like a puzzle. You feel it like a vibration humming in your bones. You don't have to be spiritual. You don't have to know hermetic law or sacred geometry or light codes. You just have to listen differently. Not with your ears, with your field, because the real knowledge, it bypasses thought. It travels through the quiet parts of your being and lands in places untouched by explanation. It's why you sometimes feel tears rise without reason. Why certain words spoken or unspoken stir something ancient in you. That's not emotion. That's memory. Not personal memory, but soul memory. The kind that echoes through lifetimes. The kind that isn't about who you were, but what you carry. And the most profound part, you don't need to figure it out. You don't need to name the feeling. You don't need to prove it's real. You just need to stay open long enough to let it work on you. Because Thoth's wisdom isn't information, it's activation. And the activation doesn't come with a certificate. It comes with a softening, a shift. A subtle click inside your system, as if an ancient lock has just remembered the shape of its key. You might not notice anything right away, but slowly, the way you see begins to change. The way you feel the world. The way you listen to yourself, to others, to silence. And in that listening, something unlocks. You remember not the facts, but the frequency. Not the teachings, but the tone. The tone that says, you've always known, you were never separate. You've simply forgotten how to hear. And now something is waking, not with fireworks, but with reverence. So when your mind asks, "What does this mean?" smile and let it be okay not to answer. Because sometimes the most sacred truths arrive not as explanations, but as echoes. And in those echoes, a knowing deeper than words begins to rise. It happens in a moment so quiet, most people miss it. You stop trying to fix the world. You stop chasing outcomes, managing perceptions, orchestrating solutions. And something unexpected begins to occur. Reality starts to shift on its own, not because you forced it, but because you left space. You see, there's a field inside you, not a metaphorical one, a real, energetic frequency that shapes how life organizes around you. And the more coherent that field becomes, the less you need to act, the less you need to explain, the less you need to chase. You've likely been taught that presence is passive, that silence is weakness, that inaction is avoidance. But the ancient ones knew better. Stillness is not absence. It is precision. It is the tuning fork of the soul that calibrates the outer world without lifting a finger. Thoth whispered of this not in words, but in vibrations. He showed that it's not your thoughts that shift your world. It's the stillness beneath them. The part of you that doesn't need to be loud, that doesn't need to win, that doesn't even need to be right, because that part already is. And when you drop into that field, when you return to the centered quiet of your own resonance, something miraculous happens. Your environment reorganizes itself. People show up differently. Obstacles dissolve. Conversations flow. Opportunities find you, not because you hunted them, but because you matched them. The ego resists this truth. It wants to do. It craves the rush of action, the validation of hustle. But the deeper self knows. Reality responds not to force, but to frequency. And the strongest frequency isn't noise. It's coherence. So what does this mean for you? It means that every time you choose to pause, every time you come back to breath, to center, to stillness, you are not doing nothing. You are doing everything. You are anchoring. You are resetting your field. You are transmitting an unseen clarity that instructs life on how to move around you. And no, this isn't magic. It's physics. It's resonance. Your stillness becomes a command. Not to control, but to guide. Not to dominate, but to allow. It says, I am here, I am available, I am in tune. And life listens, so let yourself become that field. Let your presence be the architecture. Let your breath be the design. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not broken. You are simply remembering how powerful stillness can be. And when the world outside feels wild, when you're tempted to react or prove or push, return. Not to your plan, but to your presence. Because your quietest energy speaks the loudest. And sometimes, the most transformative thing you can do is nothing at all. There's a reason your emotions swing like waves. A reason your energy rises one moment and crashes the next. It's not a flaw. It's a rhythm. The ancients called it the law of rhythm, one of the foundational Hermetic principles. It teaches us that everything moves in cycles, tides, seasons, breath, emotion. And just like the ocean, your energy follows this flow. It comes, it goes, it builds, it releases. But here's the secret they never taught you in school. You can learn to surf it. You don't have to be tossed around by every emotional current. You don't have to suppress the chaos or cling to the calm. Instead, you learn to ride the wave consciously with awareness. That's what Thoth hinted at in the deeper codes of vibration. Not control, but intentional participation. So how do you begin? Start here. Next time you feel yourself vibrating angry or lost in confusion, don't fight it. Sit, close your eyes, and breathe not to escape, but to reset. Inhale slowly, imagining a wave rising inside you. Hold it not with tension, but with gentle observation. Then exhale, visualizing the wave cresting and dissolving, taking the charge with it. This is not just breathwork. It's frequency hygiene. You are rebalancing your internal field so it can return to coherence. Now imagine a portal not somewhere out there, but within your chest. A doorway of light. On your next breath, picture stepping through that doorway not to a destination, but to a state of alignment, of remembrance, of simplicity. No need for affirmations, no need to fix anything, just awareness, just rhythm. Because when you move with your inner tide, not against it, clarity returns, not all at once, but steadily. You remember that emotions are not enemies. They are messengers. And every dip you experience is not a failure, but a swing of the pendulum preparing to rise. Use this when your day spirals, when you're overwhelmed by noise, expectation, or doubt, when you're stuck in, what's wrong with me? Come back to the breath, to the rhythm, to the portal. You're not broken, you're just out of sync. And syncing is a practice, not a punishment, not a performance, just a gentle return, over and over, until your system remembers how to stabilize itself. That's the real activation, not a cosmic download or mystical flash, but the simple, repeated decision to re-enter your own center, to choose harmony not because life got easier, but because you became clearer. And in that clarity, your field begins to hum again. And what hums in tune always attracts what belongs. There is no path you must walk, no final mountain to climb, only a state you've forgotten how to enter. Stillness is not a destination, it's home. And the truth is nothing outside you can give you what you already carry. You don't need more teachings. You don't need to chase the next secret or unlock the next level. You just need to remember. Remember the feeling of being whole before the world told you to be different. Remember the hum beneath your thoughts, the quiet presence beneath your effort. This journey is not about becoming, it's about returning. And as you return, as you come back to that original resonance, something inside you sighs in relief. Like finally, you're home, so let this not be a command, not a promise, just an invitation. A soft doorway, already open, already yours, and whenever you're ready, step through. Not because you must, but because you were never meant to forget who you are. And now, you don't have to.